The town of Derry was haunted by an entity. The town slept under a blanket of mist, a cold, creeping mist. It snaked through the streets, slithered through the alleyways. It clung to the old Victorian houses, their paint peeling like scabs. The mist was more than just weather. It was a presence, a harbinger. It spoke of secrets. It whispered of fear. Derry wasn't always like this. There was a time when laughter echoed in the town square. Children played under the warm gaze of the sun. The scent of freshly baked bread wafted from kitchen windows. But something changed. A shadow fell over Derry. A darkness crept in, silent and insidious. It seeped into the very fabric of the town, staining its soul. Derry wasn't a big town. It was nestled amidst rolling hills, surrounded by dense forests that seemed to press in on all sides. The Kennebec River, sluggish and dark, snaked its way through the heart of the town. The river, once a source of life and livelihood, now seemed to reflect the darkness that had taken hold. The buildings in Derry were old, weathered by time and neglect. Their once bright colors had faded, leaving behind a palette of grays and browns. Windows, like vacant eyes, stared out blankly. The streets were narrow, paved with cobblestones that were slick with moss. Gas lamps, their flames flickering weakly, cast long, distorted shadows that danced and writhed like living things. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. It hung heavy, suffocating. Even on the clearest day, a sense of gloom pervaded Derry. The sun seemed unable to penetrate the oppressive atmosphere. Its rays were swallowed by the darkness, leaving the town in a perpetual twilight. There was a stillness to Derry, a quiet that was more unnerving than any storm. The laughter of children had vanished. Birds no longer sang in the trees. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath as it passed through the town. It was as if Derry itself was holding its breath, waiting, watching. Every town has its secrets, its whispers of the past. Derry was no exception, but the stories that circulated in Derry weren't just harmless ghost stories told around a campfire. They were legends steeped in fear, passed down through generations. Stories of a haunting that had plagued the town since its very founding. The entity, as it was referred to, had no name, no face. It was a formless terror, a presence that manifested in different ways, preying on the fears of its victims. Some spoke of seeing a shadowy figure lurking in the periphery, vanishing when confronted. Others heard voices, whispers slithering through the night, calling their names. The legend spoke of disappearances, people vanishing without a trace, their homes left empty, their lives erased. There were stories of accidents, strange and inexplicable, blamed on the entity's influence. And then there were the whispers of madness, of people driven to the brink by the unseen terror that haunted their days and nights. The legend of the Derry haunting was more than just folklore. It was a living nightmare that permeated every aspect of life in the town. It was a weight that pressed down on the hearts of its residents, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their lives.
Mary lived on the outskirts of Derry, in a small, ramshackle house perched on a hill overlooking the town. She had always been a solitary soul, finding solace in the quiet company of her books and the sprawling wilderness that surrounded her home. But the darkness that had gripped Derry had seeped into her solitude, shattering her peace. It started subtly, a sense of being watched, a flicker of movement in the shadows at the edge of her vision, a sudden chill that seemed to emanate from the very walls of her home. Fear, insidious and relentless, began to gnaw at her. She tried to ignore it, to rationalize it away, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. Then came the night of the storm. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at the roof of her house. Rain lashed against the windows, blurring the world outside into a swirling vortex of gray. It was a night when every shadow seemed to come alive, every creak of the house a whispered threat. She was sitting by the fireplace, trying to lose herself in a book, when she heard it. A sound. A soft, dragging sound coming from the front porch. It was a slow, deliberate sound, like something heavy being pulled across the wooden planks. Her heart hammered in her chest. Fear, cold and paralyzing, gripped her. She knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that she was not alone. For a long moment I sat frozen in my chair, paralyzed by fear. The dragging sound continued, each rasp of wood on wood sending shivers down my spine. I could feel the entity's presence, a palpable darkness that pressed in on me, suffocating me. But as the fear threatened to consume me, something shifted within me. A spark of defiance ignited in my heart. I slowly rose from my chair, my legs trembling. I picked up the kerosene lamp from the table beside me, its flame flickering wildly in the draft. The room was cast in a chaotic dance of light and shadow. Taking a deep breath, I moved towards the front door, my hand gripping the handle with a strength I didn't know I possessed. I threw open the door. The wind whipped into the house, sending the flames of the lamp dancing frantically. Rain lashed at my face, but I stood my ground. I peered into the darkness, my eyes searching for the source of the sound. But there was nothing there, only the empty porch slick with rain and the swirling chaos of the storm. The dragging sound had stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the howling wind and the pounding rain. I stood there for a long moment, my heart still racing, the lamp trembling in my hand. But the fear that had gripped me was gone. In its place was a newfound sense of resolve. The storm raged throughout the night, but inside my small house, a different kind of storm was brewing within me. The fear that had haunted me for so long was receding, replaced by a wave of anger. The entity had taken so much from Derry, from its people. It had stolen their joy, their peace. It had fed on their fear, growing stronger with each victim it claimed. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of gray and purple, I stepped out onto my porch. The wind had died down, and the rain had dwindled to a gentle drizzle. The air was heavy with the scent of wet earth and pine needles. The world seemed cleansed, renewed. Looking out over the town of Derry, I could see the first signs of life returning. Smoke curled from chimneys, and a few brave souls ventured out into the streets. But I knew the darkness was still there, lurking beneath the surface. It hadn't been vanquished, only temporarily subdued. It would return, seeking new victims, feeding on their fear. But something had changed within me. I was no longer content to cower in the shadows, to let fear dictate my life. I had faced the entity, and though it hadn't shown itself, I had felt its power, its malice. I had also felt something else, a strength within myself that I hadn't known existed, a courage that had risen from the ashes of my fear, and I knew, with a certainty that settled deep within my soul, that I would no longer be a victim. I would fight, not just for myself, but for Derry, for everyone who had been touched by the darkness.
Fear is a powerful emotion. It can paralyze us, control us, dictate our every action. It can whisper doubts in our ears, convince us that we are powerless, that we are not enough. But fear is also a liar. It magnifies our weaknesses, distorts our perceptions, and blinds us to the strength that lies within us. We are all capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. We have within us the power to overcome even our deepest fears. The first step is acknowledging our fear. Don't try to ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. Face it head on, acknowledge its presence, and examine its roots. What is it about this particular fear that scares you? Why does it have such a hold over you? Once you understand the nature of your fear, you can begin to dismantle it, piece by piece. Remember that fear thrives in the darkness. It shrinks from the light of reason, of courage, of self-belief. The more you feed your fear, the stronger it grows. But when you choose to confront your fear, to shine a light on it, its power begins to fade. It loses its grip on you, its ability to control your thoughts and actions. Facing our fears is not about becoming fearless. It's about recognizing that fear is a natural part of the human experience. It's about understanding that we have the strength, the resilience, to move through our fears, to come out on the other side stronger and more empowered. Fear can manifest itself in many ways. It can be a crippling anxiety that keeps us from pursuing our dreams, a paralyzing phobia that prevents us from experiencing life to the fullest, or a pervasive dread that casts a shadow over everything we do. It can whisper doubts in our ears, telling us we're not good enough, smart enough, brave enough. It can convince us that we're alone, that no one understands what we're going through. The grip of fear can be insidious, tightening its hold on us slowly over time. It can start with a small seed of doubt, a whisper of anxiety that we try to ignore. But as we allow fear to take root, it grows stronger, its tendrils reaching into every aspect of our lives. It can affect our relationships, our work, our health, our sense of self-worth. Fear can keep us trapped in the past, replaying past mistakes, regrets, and traumas over and over again in our minds. It can also prevent us from moving forward, from embracing new challenges and opportunities. It can convince us that it's safer to stay within our comfort zones, even if those zones are no longer serving us. The longer we allow fear to control us, the more power we give it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We start to avoid situations that trigger our fear, limiting our experiences and opportunities. We may even start to isolate ourselves, withdrawing from loved ones and activities that once brought us joy. Fear thrives in isolation, in the shadows of our minds. Breaking free from the grip of fear requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to challenge our own limiting beliefs. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to our fears. We can choose to let fear control us, or we can choose to confront it, to challenge it, to reclaim our power. One of the most effective ways to overcome fear is to expose ourselves to it gradually. This doesn't mean throwing ourselves into the deep end right away. It's about taking small, manageable steps, pushing our boundaries little by little, until what once seemed terrifying becomes familiar. It's also important to cultivate self-compassion. Fear often stems from a belief that we're not good enough, that we're going to fail, that we're going to be judged or rejected. Practicing self-compassion means treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a close friend. It means acknowledging our imperfections, our vulnerabilities, and our fears without judgment. Surrounding ourselves with supportive people can also make a world of difference. When we feel alone in our fears, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But when we have people we trust to confide in, to offer encouragement and support, we realize that we're not alone in our struggles. Fear often stems from a desire to control the uncontrollable. We crave certainty, predictability, a sense of order in a world that is inherently chaotic and unpredictable. But the truth is, life is full of unknowns. We can't control everything that happens to us, and trying to do so only leads to frustration and anxiety. Embracing the unknown means accepting that life is a journey of discovery, full of twists and turns, unexpected challenges, and surprising opportunities. It means letting go of the need to control every outcome and instead focusing on navigating the journey with courage, curiosity, and an open mind. When we embrace the unknown, we open ourselves up to new experiences, new perspectives, new possibilities. We allow ourselves to grow, to learn, to evolve. We break free from the limitations of our comfort zones and step into the vastness of what life has to offer. Embracing the unknown doesn't mean becoming reckless or irresponsible. It's about finding a balance between caution and courage, between planning and spontaneity. It's about trusting ourselves to navigate the unknowns with wisdom, resilience, and a sense of adventure. Fear is a part of the human experience. It's in our nature to feel apprehensive about the unknown, to be cautious in the face of danger. But fear doesn't have to control us. We have the power to choose how we respond to our fears, to decide whether they will limit us or empower us. When we choose to confront our fears, to challenge our limiting beliefs, to step outside our comfort zones, we discover a strength within ourselves that we never knew existed. We find that we are capable of so much more than we ever imagined. We learn that fear, though powerful, is ultimately an illusion, a shadow that shrinks in the light of our courage. The journey of confronting our fears is not always easy. It requires patience, perseverance, and a willingness to be vulnerable. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, times when the shadows seem to close in on us. But even in the darkest of times, there is always a light within us, a spark of hope, a flicker of resilience that can guide us through. We are all capable of great courage. We all have the strength to face our fears, to overcome our challenges, to live lives that are authentic, meaningful, and free. The choice is ours. Will we let fear control us, or will we rise above it, embracing the unknown with courage and a heart full of hope?